Welcome to Athletic Conceptual Training, the show where we elevate voices at the intersection of wellness, leadership, and impact. Today, we're honored to speak with Dr. Christine Staten, a powerhouse in veterinary business coaching, founder of Veterinary _MBA, and a mentor to practice owners nationwide. Dr. Staten, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and greatly appreciate that wonderful intro. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump into these questions and get to know you and get to these questions. Can you walk us through your journey from clinic ownership to launching Veterinary MBA?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to go back a little further and just how I jumped into veterinary medicine, which is the non-traditional route. I was going to go and become a physician. I wanted to be an obstetrician. I was convinced I wanted to. And growing up, I also had tons of animals. I raised livestock. I showed in 4-H. I showed all over the country. I had rabbits and sheep and goats and chickens and horses and dogs. So right about the time that I was applying for medical school, a bunch of the people that were asking me questions, the interviewers asked me, why didn't I want to be a veterinarian? And I thought that was such a silly question until I came home from an interview circuit, because back then we didn't even have the internet. So it was all live. And I thought, why don't I want to be a veterinarian? And so I literally made a pro-con list of physician and veterinarian. I'm very analytical. And after interviewing a bunch of vets and doctors that week, I decided I do want to be a veterinarian. One of the main reasons was entrepreneurship. Like I felt that already in my body, and I knew that I had more opportunities as an entrepreneur to own a veterinary practice than a human physician practice. It's not the only reason I went to vet med. I love vet med. There's 1,000 other reasons now that I'm so grateful I made that swap for me personally. So that's the answer. So entrepreneurship was in my blood. So my first contract with the first veterinarian I ever worked with had a 5-year path to practice ownership written into the contract. I knew I wanted to be a practice owner as soon as possible. And I actually became a practice owner within 3 years. It didn't take me all 5 years to do that. So that's the quick part. And then we built that practice. She was a solo ambulatory doctor.
Okay.
I was with her. So we were 2 trucks driving around town, seeing whatever animals needed to be seen, from cats, dogs, ostriches, horses, whatever. And I told her I really wanted to grow the practice significantly, and she was open to that and let me kind of take the reins. So in a time when I didn't have a lot of resources, I just grew the practice, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I did a lot of things that took a lot of time, right? That shouldn't have taken that much time. And I think it's okay to make mistakes, but so I've owned that practice now for 20 years. We now have 10 doctors, 5 small animal, 5 large animal, 50 employees, 2 locations. Like it's a dream come true, but the journey was pretty messy. Yeah. So a few years ago, I kind of had a midlife crisis and decided I really wanted an MBA. There's no great reason other than it was on my bucket list.
Yeah.
So practicing full-time, running the practice, I decided to go to online school as a 50-year-old woman, which was kind of crazy. But during that, it really hit me. Like there are so many good things I was applying to my own practice. And that's when I started thinking veterinarians don't need to go get MBAs, I don't think, unless they want to, like I did. But there's so much information in all the mistakes I made in my 20 years of learning and growing, and in the MBA, that I thought, let me make some resources for other practice owners that feel lonely and need some help.
Okay. Wow. So much to take in from just that story alone. I guess I'll just jump into, how did your personal values shape the way you ran your business?
Yeah, they're directly related. So
Mhm.
the great thing is I grew up in the community that my practice is currently in.
Okay.
So this is my community. This community supported me. The people in this community, I learned, there were leaders that and mentors in this community, some of which don't even know that they were inspiring to me. And so I really wanted to give back to my community and be a part of my community. And I've always felt that as a core value, just being the community, the health of the community and the health of my practice are really interdependent on each other. And so
Yeah.
that really followed me in. And that's not just taking care of the pets and the people that own them. That's also taking care of people by providing a good workplace. We employ 50
Yeah.
people. That to me is one of my greatest achievements, is creating a workplace that people can, call home 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I think that is a huge part of my core values, is just giving back, stewardship to my community and stewardship in my personal life. I also have lots of things I do on that side. So
Yeah.
yeah, core values are really important to me.
What so one of the biggest things and hardest things to manage, and this is from firsthand experience, is the culture. How do you manage a culture? How do you foster a healthy culture, and is it even possible?
Oh, it's definitely possible. It's a lot of work. And I know it's possible because I did it wrong so frequently. Like, I can list on pages and pages all the things I did to not support a really good culture. And I think I learned
Mm,
really well from looking at what I did and doing the opposite if it didn't
yeah.
work well. And I think really culture is about buy-in from your whole team, and it's about empowering your whole team. And so you have to have the right team. And I think
Hmm.
it ultimately comes down to, you have to hire well. You have to
Mm,
hire based on your vision, your mission, your core values, and not everyone is going to be a fit for that. Even phenomenal team or phenomenal professionals within the veterinary industry, phenomenal technicians, phenomenal receptionists, phenomenal vets, might not be the right fit at your clinic, and you've got to figure out a way to recognize that. You can't let the wrong people in. I currently have a general manager, and I said her most important job is to not let the wrong people in.
yeah.
Like, that's more important than bringing the right people in,
Yeah.
to me. So you've got to get the right people, you've got to get them on board, and you've got to empower them and get them engaged. And there's bunches of ways to do that, but you can't be the boss of everything and make every little decision. They need to have a voice in the practice, and that really fosters culture,
Mm,
positive culture.
I love that. What's the biggest myth about owning a veterinary practice that no one talks about?
Um, well, I'd say the biggest reality, I'll flip it a little. The biggest reality that I think no one's prepared for is isolation. So
Hmm.
we're surrounded by people every day,
Yeah.
clients, patients, our staff, our friends, our family, but nobody feels what we feel as practice owners. Like,
Mm,
it's like being on an island, but there's people everywhere, but you feel like your island is alone. And
mm,
so I think that is a reality that you can't even explain to people until they feel it themselves and they're there. Even your own family and friends don't really get it. And I don't think this
mhm.
applies just to vet med. I think this applies to business ownership, especially business ownership where you have a lot of employees that you're responsible for. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is it the fact that you are responsible for so many things that makes it feel so lonely?
absolutely. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. And that there's just, so first, yes, I think I have 50 employees, and I feel very like I am responsible for 53 electric bills, right? If I
Hmm.
make poor decisions in my practice, I have my own house, I have
Hmm.
2 physical buildings, and I have 50 other team members that rely upon me to run a healthy, successful practice so that I can write them a paycheck so they can pay their electric bill. And
Yeah.
that is a weight that we choose to carry. It's not a burden. I don't think of it as a burden. I think of it as a gift, but it also weighs on you every decision you make. We're doing a huge expansion now, a big construction project. And I have to make the right decisions on, should I do that? Should I not do that? Because we run real close to the red in vet med. Like there's not this huge profit margin. So you've got to make good choices. And I've been through the '08 recession. I've been through the shutdowns that were imposed upon us in 2020 and 2021. And every decision really matters. So I think that's one. There's the weight. But then the other side of that is there's so much that any business owner does that no one ever knows about or appreciates, nor do they need to. And I think the first step for me is getting over that. Like they don't need to know everything I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's hard that they don't. And so when they, like, let's say they complain about culture, they complain about something, they don't have any idea how much work I've done to create something and how hard it kind of hurts when you're like, oh, it's not working, or they're not recognizing it. And you just have to accept that. And it's taken me a long time to realize that they don't need to know all that work that I do behind the scenes, but it is isolating that you're doing it without acknowledgement or even recognition from others.
I think that culture really is important at that state too, because if you have a bunch of people who may not understand all the ins and outs but show up to work and do a good job, I think it seems like that would feel better for an owner, because at least they know that they're getting up and going to work for people who actually care.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? I mean, that's the hope. You want them to know that you care deeply about them and the practice they're in and the culture, and that you're working hard to provide a healthy workplace for them. But they also don't need to know all the details. That's just a reality.
Why do you think so many great veterinarians struggle with burnout or financial stress?
Practice owners specifically, or all veterinarians?
I would say all veterinarians. Or let's do this. How about we'll go practice owners and then veterinarians?
Yeah, let me go with practice owners because that's my mindset first. So
okay, sure.
I think the burnout is related to the fact that we're in a profession where the veterinarian tends to own the clinic, right? So we have a unique skill set and we're really good at what we do as veterinarians. That is a completely different skill set to running a business.
Yeah.
And we're also the revenue generators. So we cannot back up as much as another business where, let's say you own McDonald's, and you don't have to actually work at the McDonald's every day. So I think first we have to provide the revenue, or we feel the need to provide full-time revenue. I disagree. I think that you need to back yourself out a little as a practice owner to do well and do a little less revenue providing. But so number one is that, but number two is we're not trained as business moguls out here to run a practice. We're just all winging it. And so I think the burnout comes with the exhaustion of decision fatigue, the exhaustion of, I don't even know what I'm doing on the business side. And I've got patients in rooms I've got to deal with. I can't really deal with this business crisis. And so if you're not actively pursuing growth as a leader and actively grabbing help from others and talking to other practice owners and trying to build yourself up as a CEO, you're going to get lost in the CEO side. I think it's a little bit hard over there. And financially, it's also not great if you're not running your practice really well. I think the question asked about finances. You've got to be pretty savvy. You've got to understand some tax strategy. You've got to understand stuff that nobody told you that you had to learn to run your practice really well.
Yeah. Do you believe that vet school should require business training before graduation? Why or why not?
I'm not a big fan of the word require. I think that vet school is really hard, and there's a lot of stuff they're cramming into it. You're drinking from a fire hose. I think that people would do well to learn it. And I think veterinary schools should offer it. I think even if you're never going to own a practice and you're going to be an associate veterinarian at a clinic, or you're going to work in regulatory medicine or whatever, there is some help. It's healthy to know how businesses run so you can advocate for yourself as an employee. So I think that part's really good. I think that my experience with the veterinary schools that I've worked with is that the people teaching them the business are not actively practicing as practice owners.
Yeah.
And that is a disconnect that's not, so a lot of practices teach it, or a lot of veterinary schools have required business courses. And I do think that's good, but I think that they need to be practical and logical as well. I think more importantly is teaching just personal finance and stuff. I think that will help them manage their debt and their income and just figure out how to work a budget is going to help them long term too. So
For sure.
I would love it. I had the opportunity to have business courses in veterinary school. It was required for my class in the 90s, and I loved it, obviously.
Yeah. In your opinion, is the current corporate model helping or hurting veterinary medicine as a profession?
Both, for sure, both, in my opinion. So number one, let's go with the hurting. Private practitioners, we just don't have the buying power that a corporate entity has. We don't have, they're creating their own labs. They're creating their own things that really reduce their cost of doing business, right?
Yeah.
So their overhead is going to be lower than mine, which is hard to be competitive with. They also have an entire professional team, of accountants and lawyers and all the other professionals that you need at their beck and call. And, we don't necessarily have all that easy access. So I think it's a little harder for the private practitioner to compete economically with them. The positives are they have personally, I've elevated my practice. I've made bold changes because I watch what they do. And I think that 2020 and 2021 should have taught all of us that we are rock stars. Like, we changed our entire business model overnight, every practice. And we were barely even talking to each other. And we just heard curbside care. Let's try that. We all did it differently. We all did it successfully. We literally all did it overnight. And it should have empowered us to say, what else can we do in this profession? What other big radical changes do we need to make? Can we make for our own practice? And it doesn't have to be like the practice down the road.
Right.
We can do our own thing. And so I think corporate also is doing stuff. We can look to them and say, I like that. I'm going to do that in my practice. I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm not doing that in my practice.
Yeah.
So it's made me level up, which I like.
I love that. Level up. Yes. What's one thing you did as a practice owner that you now mentor others to never do?
I think it goes back to isolation. I think what I tried to read a lot of books, which is great, but what I needed to do was sit on a lot of couches with a lot of other practice owners. And so I started doing that. At every conference that I went to, I would look for practice owners. I would find them, and this is pre-social media where it's kind of hard, but you'd find a practice owner. And some of the conferences, the strip on the bottom of your name tag says practice owner. And I'd say, hey, want to go to coffee? Hey, want to have lunch? Hey, do you want to talk during this break time? And just connecting with them, even if neither one of you really has something impactful, you just feel better about it. I just left. I was telling you, I just got back from a dude ranch in Montana where there were 27 practice owners, rural veterinarians who own their own practice. Talk about isolation. Like, these people are in the middle of nowhere doing God's work. Like, they're taking care of our food supply. I think the most impactful thing, I spoke for hours and hours. We had an incredible Dr. Lacroix also spoke. She's a veterinarian and an attorney. and we talked about building your dream team. So it was all about HR, but the most impactful and important conversations were around the campfire, just sitting next to practice owners, right?
I saw that picture. It was amazing.
It's real. Like it's
Yeah.
really real. And it has to happen.
Mm.
So I think that's the thing I did wrong, was try to learn in isolation and not learn from others who had already walked the path.
That makes sense. What's a success story from one of your coaching clients that really moved you?
Well, just because it's so fresh in my mind, I teach a course on, so I have pre-recorded master classes and workshops, which are basically cliff notes of how I have improved and how I do things based upon my MBA, based upon most of the mistakes I made. Half of the modules are me explaining why what I did in the past didn't work, which I think has a lot of value both to me and to others.
Sure.
But one of the workshops that I present and that I offer is on performance-based compensation for your whole team, and it's basically tiers. So it creates, everyone is self-motivated who you hire to move up tiers. So they come in at a tier 1, and then they can move themselves up to tier 2, 3, 4, 5, and those all have different wages attached to them. It's a system that works really well in my clinic, and every single non-veterinarian is on a tier-based compensation program in my clinic. Anyway, I teach that. And at this meeting in Montana, one of the attendees who I'd never met before had taken the workshop, and she said, "Dr. Staten, will you go over my tiers with me? I'm gonna roll it out to my team on Monday, today." Yeah. And my heart just leapt. Like I realized she talked to me about how all the problems that she had with wages and how to hire people and what wage to hire them at, and then when to give raises and when to give promotions, and how complicated that was, which was my struggle as well. And to see her and her team so excited about this rollout was definitely heartwarming to me, to sit there and go over her tier system. And she did a lot of the things in it as she built it that I think are better than mine, and I'm going to incorporate into mine. It's learning from each other. So that was a huge recent success story. That's
amazing. Right there out by the campfire.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you help clients achieve time freedom in a profession that's known for overwork?
Right. Yeah. So I'll share that I have 5 children. I have 6, and which I had before, during, and after vet school. Okay. I have a bunch of grandkids that I love spending time with. I love real estate, so I have some student rentals that I self-manage. I have an Airbnb that I self-manage, and then I have veterinary MBA. So I have a lot of things on my plate, and I think I've had to learn to manage my time to do the things that I want to do. I'm on lots of committees in my community as well, and volunteer at my church and stuff. So I want to do all these things. So I had to figure it out myself. And I think there's a lot of ways that you can find to manage your time, but you have to be purposeful about it. And I think some people are good at it and some aren't. I actually just created a free guide on how to earn your time back as a veterinary practice owner that's on my website, but it goes over different ways. And I think utilizing AI, we've got to get better at that. It's there. Yeah. We shouldn't be handwriting a SOAP from scratch. Not a SOAP, a standard operating procedure, an SOP for our clinic. I mean, it's so easy now, and we've got Loom and some other ways to make our training better. So we've got to embrace AI. And I'm saying that as a big Gen Xer here who's trying to figure it out myself. We need to get better at outsourcing. We need to get better at delegating. We need to get better we need to hire a practice manager at a certain point and recognize we're not the best person to do everything that we're doing. Yeah. I think that we need to figure out time. I time block. My life is time blocked. Like literally, this is my blocks of nice life. So that works for me. I think a lot of the problems that we have is trying to be the CEO, be the decision maker, and be the vet. And so we're making decisions as we run between rooms. Things are going to fall through the cracks all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of a CEO day, where you have a day where you are dedicated to being a CEO for your practice, so you're working on your practice, not in your practice, one day a week.
So necessary.
Yeah, it's so necessary. And then, creating things that just work without you. So SOPs, like how do we do this? Creating communication channels where people don't walk up to you and ask you questions. You can have an hour of each day dedicated to like that mental energy where, okay, now I'm going to deal with all the questions that everyone had, and they sent them to me via email or through whatever system we've set up so that I can get through them and when my brain is able to focus on them.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff to do in there. I think decision fatigue becomes a big problem and makes it harder. But I think there's time for everything. I mean, I do a lot of stuff and I have a lot of downtime, and I hang out with my grandkids a ton. So I think there's ways to do it. You've just got to be very purposeful about it. And I think you got to just acknowledge that other people need to do a lot of things that you're doing.
Yeah. Not one person can do it all.
Right.
What do you say to veterinarians who feel guilty about charging appropriately for their services?
Oh, well, I'm an entrepreneur. So, I mean, if I don't run my business well, then 50 people don't have a job and a bunch of animals in my community don't have care. Like that's easy in my brain. It's about being fair and appropriate with your pricing. The problem right now, the problem always, is that technology gets better. Tests get better. We have more we can do. So costs go up when you have more you can do. That doesn't mean that we can't operate within a spectrum of care. If somebody walks into our clinic and says, I have $150 and this sick baby goat, what can you do? Great. I don't care. Thank you for telling me ahead of time so we can spend our money wisely.
Yeah.
So we can provide spectrum of care, meaning whatever, but we have so much available to us that's very, very valuable and helpful. I mean, we're running CT scans on goats, but that guy with the $150 isn't going to be able to do that. And that's okay. But we're not going to necessarily get all the answers for that individual that we get with the one that can run the CT scan. So I don't feel the guilt as a practice owner, because I have a responsibility to run a healthy, financially healthy practice, or we're all in trouble. I mean, the people that work for me and my community will suffer because of that. So, and I think that there are always in almost every community, there are opportunities for people who really can't afford care to get care. There are a lot of grants and government funded veterinary care facilities that can offer the lower cost that's necessary for them. So it doesn't have to be my practice that does that. Is that fair?
That is fair. I mean, not only is it fair, it's necessary.
It's necessary. Yeah. It is.
If you could rewrite the playbook for how a veterinary clinic runs, what would you eliminate first?
Oh, geez, this is going to be real. So I'm going to be super, super, maybe controversial here.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a fix for this. I think that the way we have created a veterinary practice is a horrible model in terms of overhead. And we will never be able to financially compete with dentistry and human physicians. And as a result, be able to pay our support team those wages because of it. So most every veterinary clinic currently has hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in a surgical facility and all the equipment that goes with it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in the laboratory and everything that goes with that. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in radiology. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in just dentistry. So just pharmacy. We've got stuff on the shelves that's going to some of it's going to expire, some's going to go bad. That's a lot of money. And all of that also requires square footage that we're paying for.
Right.
And most of the time, those areas of the clinic are not being used.
Right.
So I think a perfect model from a financial business standpoint doesn't involve all that in the same building. It involves just like human medicine. We've got a surgery center in the middle of town. We have a pharmacy that they can go to. And we're getting closer to that with the online pharmacies and the human pharmacies carrying a lot of meds. We do not carry much at our clinic at all. We write scripts and send them down to the drugstore, the human drugstores. I think that if you had a surgery center, we just don't, pharmacy's not making money in a clinic. And it makes people mad, right? Because if I sell it to them at the price I need to sell it to break even or maybe do a tiny profit, it's still more than they're going to pay if they go to an online pharmacy. So it just
makes sense.
You say it's $5 less here. And I said, I know, get it there. So we're phasing out our pharmacy the best we can, but you still have to keep a lot of stuff in. That so far the human pharmacies aren't doing. But I think, in my perfect little utopia vet, there's a surgery center in the center of town that's staffed with technicians. And I go over there in the morning, do my surgeries and leave. And they do pre-op, post-op. They take care of them just like a human outpatient surgery center. Same with radiology. People say, oh, but what if we need to take an x-ray? Well, I've taken my kid to the doctor with a broken leg and they're like, or broken arm, and they're like, got to go to the radiologist, right? And we just do it. So I don't know if it'll ever change. And I think it's something that's also uniquely special about our industry, but it does really cramp our financial potential for profitability because the overhead is there all day long. Like it's just sitting there, sometimes empty.
So we don't need as much as we think we do to run.
Well, but the person that comes in with the animal that was hit by a car that gets immediate anesthesia and surgery, that gets immediate lab work, that those things are unique to our industry, and we can provide that where even a general practice kind of runs like an emergency practice or like a human ER. But we don't have the volume, right? That no clinic has the x-ray room constantly busy. So it's sitting empty most of the time. It's just these are thoughts that are in my head about when I look at my own overhead and how high it is and look at the standard overhead for veterinary practices, it's uniquely large compared to other medical professionals. So that's how we could tear it down a little. And I don't know exactly what that would look like. I think if I owned multiple clinics in town, I would have one of those do surgery and the rest not, or something like that. I think that's one way as private practitioners we can do it.
Interesting. What advice would you give to someone who's afraid to step into leadership in their practice?
Get leadership training. Train yourself. First of all, be more confident than you are. Because to me, leadership is just somebody who people follow, right? You can't be a leader unless people are following you. So you can't declare that you're a leader. You have to behave like a leader. And you need to learn how to behave like a leader. And I mean, I read, this whole wall over here is books about leadership. You've got to really want it. And not everyone is a great leader, but everyone can become a great leader if they want to be a good leader. So when we move people around in our practice, everyone in our practice is told you're a leader, like you are, you just have to be. But when we elevate them to middle management or any leadership position, we provide a lot of training to help them get to that level. We don't just say, you're now in charge of this area, or you're now in charge of these people. We help them get there. But anyone can be a leader that wants to be. You just have to learn a lot. I think you have to recognize yourself. I think personality tests are really helpful and fun, and figure out where your weaknesses are. Learn about how you come off to other people. I think that was really telling for me, how people perceive me, and learning about that, and learn some good leadership communication.
That's amazing. Is it ethical for vets to prioritize profit, even if it means raising prices in underserved areas?
So I think that goes back to this, the other question that we chatted about. I think,
Yeah.
first of all, underserved areas, oh gosh, do I even want to go here? So underserved
Do it.
areas
Do
to
it.
me is there. So we're a capitalistic society, right? Underserved areas are underserved because you can't be profitable in them.
Yeah.
If you could be profitable, there would be a vet clinic there. So
Yeah.
why? So when I hear underserved, I
Mm-hmm.
hear this is a community that will not support a veterinary practice.
Got it.
Because if they could, there would be. It's not because a vet practice doesn't want to be there. It's because they can't sustain a practice there. And I've
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people who are like that. So what underserved means a lot of times is that people don't go to the veterinarian. They don't bring them in for wellness. But that night, middle of the night, when they have an emergency and nobody's available because no one's in their area, they're really mad and they're like, we're underserved. But you can't be, sir. You can't have a vet practice that just sits there and waits for your
Right.
crisis. You have to support the clinic in your area. So any area that to me is called underserved means that it's not going to support a veterinary practice. So I don't know how that works. I just don't know. Without grants, without government subsidies, which there are, that area is not going to get care. Now, if they decide as a community, collectively or individually, that they're going to go to the vet and support that practice, then I'll tell you there's going to be a practice in that area. It doesn't take much. It takes an individual recognizing the demographics and recognizing that they can
Sure.
build a practice there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense. I don't think that's controversial at all.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many practice owners avoid addressing toxic team culture, and what does that cost them?
Well, it costs them everything, right? But why do they? Well, conflict. I mean, conflict averse. We're all conflict averse. Some of us more than others, but no one likes to confront things.
Yeah.
And I think there's good science on confrontation and how the emotions that it brings out, what it does to you physiologically. And again, if you're running around trying to see appointments, trying to keep your practice afloat, and hearing what sounds like a lot of gossiping about your team, that kind of becomes the thing you decide not to spend your time on, because that is hard you don't want a confrontational situation. You also have a lot of fear going into any confrontation. So, okay, my lead tech is gossiping all the time and putting other people down. Well, what happens if she leaves? Like, if I fire her, are we going to collapse? And it takes firing a few people to realize, no, not at all, because everyone else there is so happy. They rise to the occasion and they all take over the workload. But it still is a fear. So I think that they allow it, one, because they try to be oblivious to it. Like, I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to know what's going on, because it's hard. Constructive conversations are really hard. Firing people is really hard. And there's a lot of emotion, and you've got to really understand and take the time to make sure you have all the right facts and that it hasn't turned into a mess. Again, it turns into, you've got to hire well. So that can't happen, but you've got to also be on top of the tiny little things. When you feel a little tension brewing, you've got to be in that and figuring out. And that might be just saying, hey guys, it's feeling a little tense between reception and text. Let's talk about what's going on. Stop everything. We're going to meet tomorrow morning and reschedule those appointments. This is big. We need to be a team to take care of the animals, in the best way possible. That's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the profession could be a lot better in that respect. And a little bit of offense would help.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Here we go.
Should vet techs be given more decision-making power and financial incentives in private practice?
Yes.
Yes.
Easy answer.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you want an empowered team. You want an engaged team. There's great data on engagement, and engagement is somebody who, there's people who are engaged, and then there's kind of a middle ground of people who are neither engaged nor disengaged. And then there's disengaged people, and they're destroying your practice. They need to go. But the engaged people, you want to foster that. You want to give them permission to make decisions in your absence. You want to let them have an equal voice. And the people who are indifferent, we need to elevate them to engaged. We need to get them engaged purposefully. So in our team, every Wednesday morning, it's the one day that all my large animal doctors and all my large animal techs work, because we all work 4-day work week. So we're bouncing around. So every Wednesday morning, we have a large animal doctor meeting. It's just set out. And we all, doctors and techs, show up, and everyone's voice is equal. The technicians feel as they will not argue, but they'll bring forth ideas, and we have discussions about them. We have an equal voice for them, and they know that there is nothing about there's no hierarchy during that discussion, and there's a mutual respect there, and we run so much better because we have that. And our meetings all our meetings in small animal or the large animal side are conversations. They're not somebody standing in the front reading a list that could have been an email, right? Or berating them. They're, hey guys, here's the situation. What solutions do you have, or what are the barriers to getting this accomplished? And they'll tell you. If you build the culture to where their voice matters, then they're gonna help you run your practice so much better.
Yeah. What's your take on the work-life balance movement in vet med? Realistic or unrealistic for the most?
Unrealistic for anyone in any form of life. Here's why. You can't define it, right? If every individual tried to define work-life balance on a piece of paper with a pen, they could not write what work-life balance looks like. And even if they could write what it looked like this week, it would look different next week, next year, next month, right? So the thought of a scale where you're in maybe time or energy or whatever being equal is unrealistic, because it's doing this constantly, and that's healthy. So my thoughts are, if you can't define it, then you can't attain it, because you don't know what attaining it is, because it's not defined. And if your happiness is based upon attaining something that's unattainable, you're never going to be happy. I think it is one of the worst phrases out there right now, and so destructive, because people are seeking it, and yet they don't know what that end point is, because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's just not real. That term is problematic, I think.
What are you chasing? What is your goal? What is your plan? How we're going to get there?
Yes. Yeah. There's no finish line. There's no goal line that when you cross it, you've hit it. And even if there is today, it's not that tomorrow. It shouldn't be. Yeah. I've gone through very different phases of life. Right now, we're in a major construction phase. We've got construction going on the side of our building. We have a whole nother construction crew in the building doing remodel, and I have a construction crew doing some changes on our large animal clinic. I am working 3 general contractors. My time is going to be allocated to that a lot more, and I want it to be, because I need it to be successful. Whereas when the construction's not going on, it's not allocated to that, and I'm going to put some of my time and energy elsewhere. When I was getting my MBA, I didn't see my family a lot. I didn't get a lot of sleep. Yeah. But the end goal was worth it for me.
Yeah.
Not balanced. Yeah. I'm unapologetically unbalanced. It says that on all of my title slides.
I love that. I think when you have a goal and you are chasing that goal, you're surrendering yourself to the ebbs and flows of what happens or what comes with that goal. So there are stronger days, there are softer days, there are busier days, there are stressful days, and vice versa. Yes. So I think that's definitely something, with understanding the pursuit of something.
Yes.
business goals,
And
whatever.
releasing yourself from the perception of this work-life balance actually makes the journey so much better.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you hate your life or your job so much that you feel like you need to turn it off and turn it back on and like literally don't let them cross the line, then you probably need to find more joy in your job and your life so that it doesn't feel inappropriate when they kind of integrate really well.
Mm,
Like I
mm,
don't mind if I'm on vacation and I deal with a work email. That's
yeah.
okay. Like that doesn't bug me. And I also don't mind making plane reservations on my CEO day. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not that's not I have boundaries, but not like turn one off, turn one on because one's awful and one's wonderful. Hopefully that's not anyone's life.
Just surrendering to the process.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. How do you respond to people who say that business coaching is just fluff for veterinarians?
Oh, I've never heard that. I operated solo for a really long time and I floundered a lot.
Mhm.
And it's a way to build a business. I built a really successful business by floundering a lot. But about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, I started reaching out to non veterinary business owners. And just at the time, mentorship wasn't really a word, but they became mentors to me in the business world. I have other businesses that I was following. So I started working with them, and then I started getting paid coaching where I pay people to coach non-veterinary, not specifically veterinary. And I've paid for a lot of veterinary help as well, mostly with conferences and materials, not actual direct coaching, but I've done direct coaching. For me personally, every money, every dollar I've ever spent on coaching has come back 10, 20, 100 fold.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just mindset, even if it's just
Mm.
affected me, made me a better person and a leader and a better CEO and a better entrepreneur, that's going to translate. I can't always show the ROI like on paper of how it
Mm-hmm.
worked,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't matter if I'm a better leader in all my businesses because I hung around a bunch of leaders and learned from business coaches, then for me that's been really helpful.
Mm.
We can't do this alone.
No, I mean, I would even say in some cases, those things are so much more impactful at certain times of your pursuit.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. And different levels. I've been in a couple big masterminds with
Mhm.
people who, again, not veterinary at all. And I was in one a few years ago with a bunch of business people, and and I love it. It was amazing. It helped me tons, but I've outgrown that, and I'm in a different mastermind now that has people working at higher levels, and it pushes me up higher and
Yeah.
pushes me more now that I'm in
Mhm.
this. So it's finding the right connection, but it's also a lot of your own input. You can't
Mm.
expect them to just tell you what to do and your business is going to be successful. You've got
Right.
to grab what you need from it. And whether it's an individual coach or it's a mastermind group with one coach leading it,
Mm.
there's so much out there and so many people to learn from, and people who've walked the walk is who I look for. When I'm looking for a coach, a business coach, I don't want I don't want any theory, like none, which is how I tried to create Veterinary MBA. There's no theory here. This is like practical, actionable, and that's what I look for. So that's what I want to provide for people. No
Yeah.
fluff at
No
all.
fluff.
No
Yeah.
fluff.
I love that. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are watching this and if you're paying attention to anybody who's not just trying to grow a practice, but trying to pursue, whether it's a business or a goal and things like that, this last 30-second conversation, there were so many nuggets in there. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. I've learned from good leaders, and I think most leaders would have said similar things. It's
Yeah.
great. It's fun to learn and grow.
It is, and it's for me. It's so. I mean, even talking with you right now, I'm like, and just coming from an idea of doing interviews, and now here we are,
Yeah, look at
and
you. I'm sure that everyone who speaks to you gets to learn stuff, and you get to take away all these pearls as well from
yeah.
everything. Yeah, no, it's a great thing. It's the sitting on the couch, right? At
Hmm.
a conference in the lobby, hanging out at the bar, waiting to find somebody who also wants to just sit and talk about
Yeah.
whatever leadership things we're
Hmm.
going through.
Hmm. It doesn't take a lot either. It's those little, like you said, those little nuggets that you pick up and take with you and put in your pocket and apply them or add your little twist that you really grow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm, it's exciting. Um, Speaking of excitement, what excites you most about the next generation of veterinary leaders?
Oh, I'm loving them. So I work with a lot of veterinary students. We're a
Okay.
core rotation. Our practice is we bring in about 30 to 35 veterinary students for externships each year. Plus, I get to
Hmm.
talk to a lot of VBMA, which is veterinary,
Hmm.
the VBMA groups, either by Zoom or in person. And these guys are excited. This generation, they can up level way faster than we did. They're not satisfied with the status quo. And
Hmm.
I love that. They're going to push us, and we're going to, it's exciting. We're going to have better practices. We're going to have to do things better because they're not going to tolerate the status quo. I am
Yeah.
loving them. I'm
Yeah.
loving chatting with them. I'm loving hanging out with them. I'm loving consulting with them.
Awesome. Let me know if you ever need any sit-ins or someone to interview for you.
Yes.
How does veterinary underscore MBA directly contribute to the long-term health of this profession?
Well, what I did is I thought, what would I have wanted that I didn't have during my journey?
Hmm.
And I created that. And
Okay.
so I created master classes and workshops that originally I ran live, but now sit in the library. They're just on demand. Somebody could grab them and watch them. They get lifetime access to it. So if later they're, as they have up leveled now, maybe some of the bigger principles are going to be more effective for them. And I basically sit in front of a camera and talk about the things I did wrong, the things that are working currently in my clinic, because I'm actively working in my clinic still. And then I update those as things change, as they should change. So I hope that what it does is take these owners that are scared to do the next thing and gives them a framework and some tangible ways to do that. Because the
Mhm.
reality is, we're all veterinarians, I think, and especially practice owners, we're good at a lot of things. And so we have to be bold enough and brave enough to be a beginner at
Yeah.
something. We're never going to get better if we don't become a beginner again. And I think that's really
Mm.
hard to do. A great example, which actually I'm going to write a post about, is um, we did line dancing at this event in Montana. I
Okay.
am the worst. I have zero rhythm. I cannot memorize a pattern at all. I knew that walking out on that dance floor. And I'm the leader at this conference. Like, I'm presenting, and I'm like, I'm just going to humble myself because it's going to be fun if I can figure it out. And
Yep.
spoiler alert, I never got one series right ever, but I had an incredible time. I connected with a lot of people. And I
There you
think
go.
being willing to be a beginner is a mindset thing. And so
Hmm.
saying, I make every decision in my practice because I don't want to delegate it out because of whatever reason. It might be control, or it might be you don't want that responsibility on everybody. Letting go and saying, okay, I'm willing to delegate stuff. I don't know how. How do I delegate stuff? And then looking to whatever. I have resources, other people have resources, learn how to delegate. And so those are the concepts that I'm hoping I can help people with, both through Instagram posts, my newsletter, and then paid resources that I have through my library.
Awesome. And that's a perfect segue to the next question, which was how can people learn more about your coaching and what's the best way to work with you?
Great. Yeah. So I have a website. It's veterinary-mba.com. And I send out newsletters with pearls of wisdom, hopefully, once or twice a week. There's a lot of free resources available on there that can help practice owners with their time, with providing well-being benefits for their team, with deciding if you want to be an associate or if you want to become a practice owner. Those are free resources there. And then there's a paid resource library. Certainly I'm available through DMs, through Instagram at any time. And the Instagram is veterinary_MBA. I've got dash for the one and underscore for the other, unfortunately. And then if you want to follow along the veterinary stuff, dr.Christine Staten is, if you don't mind gross pictures, is where I post a lot of what we do in the clinic.
That's amazing. Wow. Thank you so much for coming on and spending a little bit of time with me and educating us on your techniques and what you have to provide with Veterinary MBA. Your work is amazing. I will be following and liking and sharing, and we'll get this video out for everyone to consume and to use as a bit of a resource or just a connection to you.
I'd love it. My doors are always open. I'm learning. I don't talk to a single person that I don't walk away learning something. So there's an email. People can reach out via email through the website. They can DM me. But yeah, let's chat more about all these topics. And I am so grateful that you invited me on here and let me be a part of today and let me talk so doggone much.
No, yes, thank you for joining us. I think this is something that the fans really wanted and love. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, this is Ryan from Athletic Conceptual Training with another wonderful veterinary professional interview. You all have a good day.